I watched 3 bad Christmas movies for some reason. Okay, so I actually love Christmas. Like, I love the vibes. I love hanging out by the tree. I love seeing family and friends. I love some snow on a Christmas morning, but I do not love watching Christmas movies for the sake of watching a Christmas movie. And I specifically do not enjoy the Hallmark style affairs. I have the Christmas movies I loved as a kid. I have the ones that I've let other people vet for me throughout the years, and I have the ones that are just genuinely amazing movies that feel like they fit in at Christmas time. Recent entrant to that genre, The Holdovers. So you might be asking, Amanda, then why did you watch 3 different Christmas movies of Hallmark and Lifetime quality on Netflix in one evening? They learned the wrong message when you do that. And I have a very specific logic tree to present to you. So I saw that there was a Christmas movie coming out with Lindsay Lohan, and I'm always interested to see what she's up to, and Ian Harding, who was the teacher dating one of the little liars in Pretty Little Liars. And I thought, yes, that will be the one Christmas movie I cover this year as long as it feeds me for the season. But then I saw that there was one coming out the week before with Chad Michael Murray, and as you may and should know, Chad Michael Murray was the love interest in Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan.
Hit me, baby!
And I love Freaky Friday, so I thought it would be kind of fun to maybe watch both of them, kind of put them up against each other for a fun little competition. Because in that movie, he was supposed to be a male stripper saving a small town bar, and I thought, if anything, it should at least be trashy and hilarious, which is perfect for a video. But to my dismay, it was tame and lame as hell, a genuinely bad movie. And I believe that it should feel bad for wasting that goofy premise and my time. When I tell you it started feeling so long that I bumped it to 1.5 times speed to get through it faster, and then realized it was only 87 minutes long, like that tells you what you need to know. Not at all surprising considering this was directed by the guy who did Secret Obsession. Do you remember that Trash Fest? So I just didn't feel like I got the vibes I was expecting from that movie, and then I remembered people talking about Hot Frosty. And that one seemed like it could provide the goof I was hoping for in a movie with that kind of premise. Only to find that it stars Lacey Chabert of Mean Girls, so we now have an additional through line from Lindsay Lohan, so it feels like it works like this perfect little triangle.
I know who I am.
That is so funny. That looks just like a girl I went to high school with.
Also, that is a clip from the last Lindsay Lohan Netflix Christmas movie. But that meant I spent almost 5 hours watching mid to terrible Christmas movies alone on a Saturday night, so that wasn't great. So I figured because of my self-inflicted torture, I would put them to the test. Which one is the most enjoyable? Which one is using its premise the best? And which one sucks and isn't invited to Christmas dinner? I fear I've already given that answer away, but like, come on, just come on the adventure. But what's always invited to Christmas dinner is today's sponsor, Surfshark. Picture it, you're all bundled up inside looking for movies that perfectly encapsulate the holiday season without feeling like a pile of steamy garbage. Remember that your dear friend Amanda recommended you The Holdovers, only to see that, oh no, statistically it is not streaming where you live. Well, that's where Surfshark comes in. Surfshark VPN lets you connect to any one of their thousands of different servers around the world so your internet thinks you're in that location. So that means all you have to do is connect to an Australian server location, reload Netflix, and you will be good to go with The Holdovers in all its Paul Giamatti glory. Surfshark is my go-to for accessing Canadian streaming services when I'm traveling, catching movies that aren't available on streaming services here, accessing my YouTube premium benefits no matter what country I'm in, and just to keep me more secure on public Wi-Fi. They even let you generate alternate emails and US phone numbers to avoid giving out your personal data where it's not necessary to help cut down on spam and scams. So try out Surfshark for yourself today. It's fast, secure, blocks unwanted ads, is available across unlimited devices. If you go to surfshark.com/Jedi, you can get an extra 4 months completely free. So this one I am actually going to break into categories, so we'll go through those, and at the end I'll just give my final thoughts on where I think the strengths lie and which one comes out on top. So we're going to start with the premises and go from the least to most absurd. So in our little secret, Avery and Logan were childhood friends and sweethearts until Avery moved away for work after her mom died, which Logan did not take well, blowing up their friendship until 10 years later, they realized the people they're dating are siblings and they now have to spend the holidays together while pretending not to know one another. You'd think a childhood friend turned into high school sweetheart would have come up at some point in a relationship if you've reached the point that you're meeting their families, but okay. So at face value, this is obviously the most grounded of the 3 premises. Another than being interested in this one just because of the cast, it was actually directed by the guy who did Bill and Ted and the Mighty Ducks, so I was kind of hoping that there was going to be a good amount of charm here. Then I think we're going to have to go with Hot Frosty, where at face value does feel like the most ridiculous premise because it is a woman who brings a snowman to life with a magic scarf, and he ultimately helps her learn to love and laugh again after the loss of her husband. But somehow that also just feels so stereotypical Christmas movie that it just kind of ends up in the middle here. I truly just love the description of this movie that ends with, can he help her rediscover romance, laughter, and holiday cheer before he melts away? It's magic, it's perfect, and somehow even with a literal magic scarf and brainless snow sculpture turned human, still does not feel as absurd as The Merry Gentleman. I don't think I ever said that was the title of the Chad Michael Murray movie, but it's called The Merry Gentleman. Where one of the initial murders in Scream 4 is a Christmas Broadway dancer, so there's a movie connection to Mean Girls. I suppose they did a lovely little Jingle Bells dance off in that one too. Tries to save her parents' small town bar by getting the local men to dance topless. Because apparently the women in the city are so horny and deprived that in the matter of weeks they will generate enough revenue to pay back this bar's $30,000 debt. And again, I must stress that the way I'm describing this probably makes it sound way more entertaining than it actually is. Sorry, I really gotta stop giving away where my ratings are gonna fall when I'm speaking with such disdain. This one is really just going straight typical Hallmark. We get the big city girl being forced back into her small town, immediately hit up by the local handy hottie, and they do nothing with it? This should have been hilarious. This should have felt like a mid to late 2000s, early 2010s comedy. And instead, they made the one with male strippers the most wholesome. It literally feels like they set out to make a Hallmark stripper movie and succeeded perfectly, which makes it a terrible movie. It's entirely too wholesome. Like, I don't understand how this is the only one that managed to get the PG rating, but it did. They did it. They made a not PG-13, PG stripper movie. Oddly enough, Our Little Secret, the one that is like inarguably the most grounded premise, is the one that lets itself go the most absurd and have the most fun. Like at one point, Lindsay Lohan accidentally eats a bunch of weed gummies before she's supposed to do a reading in a church, and the secondhand embarrassment I was feeling in that scene was as high as she was, but it made for some fun moments. Hot Frosty is a little bit of an anomaly in this whole thing because the premise alone playing out is pretty absurd, and I'd say that the script itself is pretty thin, but the actors are bringing it to life in varying ways of like absurdity and sincerity, which is really working for it. Like Lacey Chabert is playing it completely straight like a Hallmark professional, but Craig Robinson came in and is playing it like he's in threat level midnight.
I can't see it blown up. It's my retirement plan. We're at threat level midnight.
And that really worked for it. It's kind of just elevating the comedy in areas where we're not getting from like the central couple. Honestly, I think if you put Lindsay Lohan in this movie too as the lead, it would instantly be better. But as it stands, pretty cute. So really, in terms of premise, the only one I think is using it poorly is The Merry Gentleman. But with the premises out of the way, let's move into the conflicts. What are making these movies tick outside the romance? With Our Little Secret, Avery's boyfriend's mom, played by Kristen Chenoweth, immediately dislikes her. Cameron here's a real mama's boy, so no one's good enough for him, so it's just hostility the second they meet. Well, she immediately loves Logan, so once the two realize that they're dating siblings, Avery really pushes not to tell anyone because she thinks it'll just add to the animosity and make the holiday awkward for everyone. So pretty bad idea there, but she maintained it so strongly that Logan feels like he kind of has to go along with it now, but decides that they might be able to help each other. He has a proposal that he wants to pitch to the family friend neighbors. She's super successful with pitches, so in exchange for her help on his proposal, he'll make her look good to the mom, Erica, starting her out to do a nice reading at the church for Christmas service, which is what leads into a domino effect of disaster that makes this movie get more absurd than either of the other two movies that at face value seemed like they should have been more wacky. They go to pick out a Christmas tree, which she gives her the credit for, but she accidentally consumes a bunch of the younger brother's weed gummies in the jacket she was wearing, which leads her to giving an absurdly incorrect account of Jesus' birth.
So bring your good times. We're gonna celebrate this party with you.
Is that calling the gang?
Yes, I think so.
And honestly, I had to jump to the end of this scene to see what would happen before I could actually watch it, because it was just like it was too high. The cringe and embarrassment was too high in me, and like there's some things I can handle, but every once in a while it'll rear up on me, and this was one of those moments I'm like, I can't watch this happen. But somehow it turned out super well because she jazzed up all the younger attendees.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Must be.
So Jesus' buddy here is like, I don't care how inaccurate that was. We're gonna get some young converts in here. But then because she's super high, she gets super snacky and eats like 12 Christmas cookies that were supposed to be used in like an official exchange the mom was doing. So she pretends that this tiny little dog consumed all these cookies, so obviously they have to go to the vet because chocolate is toxic to dogs, where she then has to bribe that vet to not pump the dog's stomach.
Please, no. Are you married?
Yes.
How are your in-laws?
taking care of the bill and seeming a little bit more like a hero in Erica's eyes. But to make it look like the dog ate it, she needed Erica distracted, so while Logan's doing that for her, he unintentionally gives the mom the impression that he's going to propose to Cassie. Which is weird because they're a very new relationship, so that is just a little ticking time bomb waiting that he's completely unaware of. Like, if even one of the little dominoes that happened in this movie happened in Merry Gentlemen, it would at least have some kind of leg to stand on, but it's just nothing. So yeah, the mounting conflicts in Our Little Secret are pretty fun, but there are some additional dramas, like Avery's boyfriend definitely seems to still have feelings for his high school sweetheart, which feels like they're just introducing so that when they inevitably, when she and Logan inevitably end up together, we won't feel bad that she kind of ruined her existing relationship. Then in terms of conflicts for Hot Frosty, who I must clarify was not a regular snowman before he turned into what they're telling us is a hot man. No, for some reason someone sculpted a man-accurate snowman with nipples. And honestly, what's going on beneath the stomach here? So honestly, the conflict in this movie for me is that they never say who made this monstrosity of a snow thing. How is it held up structurally long enough for Lacey Chabert to put a scarf on it? But no, the real struggle in this movie is that once he came to life, he's obviously totally nude, except for that scarf. There's actually a scene where I'm positive they had that thing glued down to him because it was not moving normally. But then he accidentally crashes through a store window, borrows some clothing, so he's now being hunted down as a thief and a streaker.
What was that?
I'm not sure. Let's investigate.
Ethel couldn't describe him?
Oh, she could, but we needed a description of his face.
So we just have Craig Robinson being this goofy, over-serious while unserious sheriff, and his deputy Joe Truglio just kind of having fun in a way that felt a little bit similar to Seth Rogen and Bill Hader in Superbad, trying to hunt this mystery man down. Well, as mentioned, Lacey Chabert as Kathy is just playing things entirely too straight and is still processing the idea of letting someone new in after the loss of her husband to cancer. But you know, going through that process with someone who grew a brain out of nowhere and would be questionable on the adult front, but it's fine. Most of this is just him being really into her because he feels like she gave him life, no interest in who actually sculpted him, only has eyes for her even though all the ladies over the age of 50 are thirsting for him.
Yeah. Oh, it's working. Okay, great.
So yeah, on top of the conflict of her trying to come to terms with letting someone new in after the loss of her husband, the cops trying to track him down, there is also the looming concern that he could literally melt because he just overheats. Even as a man body, he can still melt. Oh, and her friend, the doctor, is just not remotely interested in figuring out why this person's body temperature was below freezing. Just instantly yeah, well, magic shouldn't be real, but it's Christmas. Snowman thing totally tracks. So now we're down to the Merry Gentlemen. Again, a couple conflicts here. The first is her being fired from the holiday dance troupe for being too old. Ouch, that hurt. Fuck you. And then getting home to visit her parents for the holiday for the first time since she started doing the Broadway shows and realizing that they are about to lose their family establishment bar. I guess they're behind on their rent, which keeps getting raised, and they just can't build the interest to get this place back to its former glory. And the kind of evil, but not really that much landlady is played by Mrs. Russo from Wizards of Waverly Place. And I say evil, but not that much, because apparently she does keep raising the rent, but she also worked to find a new buyer for the spot that's willing to pay off all of their back rent, cover any repairs, buy them out of the lease, which totals to about $30,000. So I'm supposed to believe that the bad option in this movie is being bought out of your financial ruin with no strings attached? Most people would be so relieved, I get you're losing your source of income, but if you're $30,000 in debt, you're not making any income. Literally, the mild repairs they're having done are just being done pro bono by Luke the handyman here. But whatever, Ashley decides that she can't let her parents lose this local staple and decides to help choreograph a male dance show to bring in the locals this holiday season. Bold play to make what is currently a doodly dive bar into a Chippendales. Look, I'm not saying the ladies wouldn't turn out for that. I'm just saying I don't think the ladies of a small town would show up $30,000 worth a couple weeks before Christmas. But yeah, that's the conflict there. Was kind of hoping that he was an existing male stripper or something, and there was that they tried to make that weirdly wholesome while playing into the comedy of it. Again, this is just a ruined premise in my humble opinion. So for conflicts, I think I am just going to give it to Our Little Secret. There's more going on, and I think they're handling it better overall. But let's slide into how each of these movies handle their main focus, not Christmas, the romance. So our little secret is interesting in that I don't actually feel the romantic chemistry between Lohan and Harding, but I think they act well off of each other, so there is chemistry there. It's just more like friendship chemistry, which makes the movie an enjoyable watch. And that means it also doesn't feel super wrong when they, spoiler alert, end up together in the end. I hope no one thinks that's a spoiler. Like, I do feel like we all know what we're doing here. We all know what each of these movies is doing. But to really ding it down on the romantic partner side of things, Logan says some stuff that's pretty fucked up when it comes to the bigger emotional moments of these movies. So when Avery decides to move to London to just get away from everything that happened after her mom's death, Logan is not in the plans to go with her. And in a desperate plea to get her to stay, he proposes, then says this shit when she says no.
Like, if your mom were here, I think she'd be really disappointed in you.
What the fuck? You never use a dead parent to manipulate someone, you sicko. This is why you dated a high school student. Fictionally. Then later on, when they're just talking about the dynamic of things that are happening, he again uses the mom in a weird comparison to him. He says that he understands why she had to go because she lost the most important person to her, but then tosses in that so did he.
I know that you lost the most important person to you in the entire world that year, but so did I.
I'm sorry, are you comparing her losing her mother in death to are you losing her to a plane? There's lots more planes. You could have gone to visit London, buddy. Like, Christ, my guy, this is why you guys didn't talk for 10 years. I'm not saying it was right of her to just immediately pack up and go without, like, maybe taking him into consideration if they were in a serious relationship, but, like, this was never gonna be the way you'd get her back. So even though Logan is nice, successful, charming, the dad loves him and believes they could be together or should be together, I cannot give him the win for all the aforementioned reasons when we're comparing to the other movies. So Hot Frosty, while very romantic, does feel a little bit different. It feels weird because by all metrics, this thing shouldn't have a developing brain, but magic, he learns fast, but mostly it just makes him really good at doing like handy stuff. Like emotionally and street smarts wise, he is still like toddler level. Just this little boy in a man body being sexualized by the entire town. But he's really nice and that dopey innocence is working for him on the charm scale because he doesn't have it in him to not just be like super sincere in everything he says, so it just all comes out as incredibly kind and honest. He doesn't even realize that the older ladies are sexualizing him because he only has eyes for Kathy. Mainly because she brought him to life, but he is learning the nuances of love and the differences between love and in love.
You don't love me.
Yes, I do. I love you.
No, you don't. The whole town loves you.
The whole town loves me, and you're in town.
Stop.
So he's just being this regular little charmer while he's like totally fixing her house, which has been falling apart. He's also making the city better. Like he fixes the window he broke and he gets a job at the middle school and is super helpful there, setting up for their dance. He's just a cool dude and not just literally. I'm so sorry. And while I do still think that Lindsay Lohan would be a better fit in this and probably bring like this added level of like silly little charm, Lacey's fine. Like I mentioned, she's just the typical Hallmark Christmas girl and will start making herself open for love even though she knows he's a snowman. Who I also haven't mentioned that his name is Jack because the thing he stole said Jack on it, because of course. So I would say the chemistry here is a lot better, but it also just gets points because it's like the entire town is falling for Jack in various ways. So I'll say that the chemistry here between them is probably a little bit better, but it's getting points in addition to just not just being the romance side of things, it's also that the entire town is falling for him and not just the thirsty older ladies. It's because he's genuinely making the place better and more merry and cheery. So I think he's going to end up taking the top love interest in these three movies because with Merry Gentleman, Chad Michael Murray, you let me down. You can't just show up and be Chad and have that be good enough now, guy. You've got to try. Josh Hartnett put his whole Hartnett Ussie into Trap and you can't even show up for a Netflix movie? Jake sang the Bowling for Soup Britney Spears cover outside Jamie Lee Curtis's window. What is Luke bringing to the table?
When one door closes, another one opens.
What's behind this door?
Just a carpenter.
Yeah, nothing. You brought nothing, and don't think you're slick because of the Carpenter line in a Christmas movie. As shitty as the country music this ended up infused with. And I don't even fully blame you because Britt Robinson also brought nothing. No chemistry here, not even on a friendship level. It's just disappointing all around. And it's like the movie can't even decide what tone it wants to bring to this dynamic. Like it kind of starts with the big city girl, small city dope back and forth, but it just, they don't hold that animosity anywhere, so you're not doing the kind of like sassy to lover trope.
Maybe you should just let go. It should be fine.
Okay, I'm gonna...
So there's no romantic tension in there. Like the most drama this manages to conjure up is that he was already married and then she's the only reason why he had moved to the small town and then she almost immediately moved back, leaving him. So you know that's going to be part of their drama too because she obviously wishes she was still in the big city doing her Broadway life. And I shouldn't want to enjoy a movie with half-naked men dancing for Christmas. Aggressively not my jam. I am aggressively not the intended audience for that. So you know it's bad when even I'm like, oh my god, you guys really dropped that premise. This could have been something and you did nothing. Maybe this video should have just been 20 minutes of me yelling about everything in Merry Gentlemen, but I think I'm getting my points across in this way I don't have to watch it again. Okay, well, there's no chemistry here and the movie is annoying me as a whole. The nice handyman who helps your parents and is not a snowman and doesn't have the brain that magically grew in seconds so it doesn't feel a little bit weird like you're taking advantage of a child is probably the best of the romantic interests here versus that and the guy who keeps comparing himself to your dead mother. I am just not charmed by the romance of this movie. All right, so now that we have the setup, the romance, and the conflicts all established, how do each of these movies play out? With our little secret, we are spiraling into some family drama on multiple fronts. One, there's some new conflict between Logan and Avery because he knows that her boyfriend Cameron was out late with his ex one night, but she assumes it's just Logan being weird and jealous. Then he catches the neighbor wife of the guy he's supposed to be pitching his proposal to cheating with his girlfriend's dad.
Everyone can see that you're in a loveless marriage, but you are old. That is just marriage at this point.
2, Cassie surprises Logan by inviting his grandmother and mom to their house, and they absolutely know the history with Avery.
Avery's here, don't ask questions, you do not know her.
Which Grandma immediately ruins.
Avery, what the hell are you doing here?
So now things really start spiraling out. Cameron's pissed off, but it seems pretty confirmed that he already cheated on Avery with his ex. Then it slips out that the mom thought that Logan was going to propose to Cassie, which he didn't even realize he'd implied.
Logan was going to propose.
What?
Which is when it slips out that the neighbor and the dad were cheating together, which apparently the mom already knew.
He's happier and around less. It's a win-win.
But this poor rich man had no idea that his wife was cheating on him, so that's unfortunate. I'm going to spoil a little thing for later. They then have the cheated on partners get together, but I don't know how I could be with someone who knew I was being cheated on and didn't say anything because it felt easier for their own marriage not to. So yeah, this is just an entire family holiday shit show, almost reaching the heights of a Wedding Crashers, which I feel like this is in that realm. It is not in it. It's not there, but it's in the realm. Before this obviously ends super wholesome, they don't actually say what Logan said to Cassie, just that he ends it. And then he let Avery's dad know that she wanted to buy the house, so he lets her make her offer instead. Then she makes sure that Stan actually considers Logan's proposal, even though the night ended up being a disaster. Then it ends how it started, with him making a grand gesture speech at her housewarming party, asking for a second chance. You know, I probably would have done that in private, but you know, for the follow through of the movie, I understand why it happened this way, and it's cute. We'll allow it. Happily ever after, off to Hot Frosty. So while Jack's been spreading the cheer around town, engaging in coordinated dances with middle schoolers, Sheriff Hunter has been hot on his trail and finally realizes that an ATM camera was facing the window Jack broke, and it's all he needs to arrest him on Christmas Eve, where traumatically he starts to melt in prison. But the sheriff has no care because he thinks he just caught some covert agent because Jack doesn't have fingerprints. But of course, as expected, the entire city comes together to pay his bill, and then the sheriff finally comes around when his own son contributes to have Jack released. But sadly, it might be too late.
I'm so sorry. I didn't believe it. I'm so sorry.
And just adore the delivery here. This man does not give a shit about trying to come across as sincere in this movie at all, and it's all the better for it. Oh yeah, I need to clarify that at this point, the entire town knows that Jack is a snowman, and they just accept it in like a couple seconds and move past it just so fast. So we're letting it happen. Also, I never mentioned that the scarf was given to her by this couple who owns the thrift shop, and the implication is absolutely that her husband was also a snowman. You think they might have offered up a little bit more help to them, but it also just makes me question the entire foundation of their romance because, you know, why does Jack love Kathy? And is it for more reasons than she's the one who put the scarf around him? All very goofy though, big fan, but yeah, Jack appears to be dead, so they just take off his scarf and leave him in the streets. But not before she tried to bring him back to life with a level 4 reveal though.
I'm falling in love with you.
That's Bachelor Nation speak if you didn't know. And I don't know if it was that or taking away his scarf, but he comes back to life and now he just seems to be completely human because he can finally feel that cold. So they live happily ever after as expected. She finally lets him in, and he's honestly a supportive king that wants her to prioritize loving herself over him. And that's just a really nice thing from this person who's been a human for like a day. And that leaves us with the married gentleman. So as I saw coming from a mile away, she ends up getting an offer to take back her old dance position when her replacement just kind of crashes out. And they're well on their way to saving the bar, so her parents are like, you know what? You need to do things for yourself in life. You need to take care of yourself and your own future. And you know, they're just encouraging her to live her dreamer life, and they'll take care of their own bar they got into their mess, they can get out of it. But she and Luke have been hitting it off so romantically because this movie tells us they are. So it's obviously a very touchy subject that the first girl he's been into since his wife left him is also going to leave him to go back to the big city, which upsets him so much that he stops that final performance before she rushes in because she just realizes she couldn't get on that plane. No need for a guaranteed contract on Broadway. She has males to choreograph. Again, in a small town bar that somehow has a bunch of women whose husbands aren't pitching a fit that their wives are regularly going to solo male dance shows to the tune of $30,000. Again, I just don't think this is a sustainable business model. Again, I simply would have taken the offer to have all the debts paid and just be able to walk away from the mess entirely. Or better yet, use all this money they got to pay off those debts and then still sell it and keep the pure profit while planning for your retirement. But whatever, yay, they made their $30,000 in a couple weeks and now they get to live happily ever after until the bar just goes right back to not performing well because, again, how many nights a week can you get people to come out and look at dudes in a small town? It's one thing when you're all rallying together to save something. Once it's saved, the energy is just not gonna stick. God, I'm just so upset at this utter waste of goofy premise. It's Night Swim all over again. But that brings us to our final thoughts. So for me, I feel that Our Little Secret is the strongest of the three. I feel like it uses the premise well, it has nice performances, it has good bits, it steers into the wacky family drama and sticks the landing for the holiday feel-good. And while it's the most recent release, so things could change as more people are watching, it does currently have the highest audience review, which makes sense to me. But I gotta say, critics really seem to like Hot Frosty, or at least they don't dislike it enough to actually give it a rotten rating because it is sitting in like the 80s while the other two are in the 40s. But again, to explain Rotten Tomatoes, and 80% on Rotten Tomatoes is not like a review average of 80%. It's just that 80% of the reviews are not rotten. That means if 80 people out of 100 rated it a 6 out of 10, a 60%, it would still be an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes because it's 80% fresh. It's 80% on the positive scale. But I guess that makes sense to me. It's like a Hallmark style story with a little bit more goofy magic thrown in, which is appreciated. It's got a little bit of a wacky premise to bring more people in. But then it's also leaving room for the actors to come in and bring their own comedy and maybe like elevate what was on the page a little bit more compared to if it had just been a regular Hallmark movie. And to my relief, The Merry Gentleman was easily the most disliked across the board of all three. And I think it should actually be more disliked. I think some people are scared of giving things lower ratings sometimes, but my God, this is not a good movie at all and it should feel very bad for it. I actually hate that I was excited for it to be some kind of fun shit show and then I got nothing. And boring nothing is always the worst type of movie there is. It's why Morbius is bad and Madam Web is fun bad. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this holiday spectacular. If you saw these movies, let me know what you guys think of them. Maybe your rankings are vastly different than mine, or maybe you just have a soft spot for The Merry Gentleman. I will entertain your thoughts. Are there any other ridiculous Christmas movies this year you've seen? I saw one that seems to be based off of the Chiefs and some weird romance thing trying to capitalize off of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, so the world is completely wild and wacky and we're just here living in it. But thank you all so much for watching. Thanks as always to my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. All my other social medias are listed down below. Leave a like on the video if you're into that kind of thing and subscribe if you are new. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm mostly okay and we'll catch you all later.